Chapter 1. 6 years later, Manuel and I appeared together at our high school reunion. Everyone was congratulating us, saying that lovers had finally become a couple. I was happy, but when I looked at Manuel, he seemed distracted. He avoided my gaze and gently pushed my hand away. "I'm going out to make a call." I paused slightly. "Okay." That call lasted a long time. For no clear reason, a sense of unease rose in my chest, and I decided to go outside to look for him. That was when I saw him holding a woman in his arms. I knew that woman too. Linda, Manuel's ex-girlfriend. At that moment, they looked just like a couple in the throes of passionate love, clinging tightly to each other. I was the outsider instead. They were pouring out their feelings to each other on the other side, while I stood here like a ridiculous clown. Just like back then, laughably pathetic. I didn't stay any longer and turned back to the private room. Inside, the high school reunion carried on, lively and noisy, under the flickering lights. No one noticed the expression on my face. I sat in a corner and waited for about 20 minutes before the door to the room opened again. Manuel walked in and sat down beside me. I didn't know if I was being overly sensitive, but I caught a faint trace of tuberose perfume on him. I took a deep breath and asked, my tone unexpectedly calm, "What kind of call takes that long?" Manuel paused, then replied, "I ran into a client." A client. He probably didn't know that whenever he felt guilty, his left hand would unconsciously rub the web between the thumb and forefinger of his right hand. I closed my eyes and took another deep breath. "I'm a little tired." "What?" Manuel was distracted, taking a beat too long to react. He thought I just wanted to leave early and said, "Then I'll let them know and go back with you." I shook my head and pressed down on his hand. His hand was narrow and slender, like a piece of art. Even now, I still remember how fast my heart was racing the first time I held it. I said, "Manuel, let's break up." Chapter 2. I met Manuel in my second year of high school. He transferred into our class as a new student, wealthy family background, flashy looks, and quickly became the center of attention. At the time, I was troubled by my parents' divorce and didn't pay much attention to him, until that day, when I was late. To avoid getting my name recorded, I chose to climb over the wall. It was my first time. I had no experience and was too nervous. I stood there for a long time, fumbling and not knowing where to start. "Are you climbing or not?" "If you're not, I am." The voice startled me. I turned around. It was Manuel. Even if I hadn't paid attention to him, his face, once you'd seen it, was hard to forget. I didn't know whether he recognized me. I hurriedly lowered my head and stepped aside. I figured I'd watch him climb first and then copy what he did. I saw him casually toss his bag over the wall. Before I could see clearly, he had already leapt onto the top of the wall and was looking down at me from above. Because of the backlight, I couldn't quite see his face. The next second, he sighed and jumped back down. I froze, probably because it was hot. He impatiently fanned his collar, and a clean, soapy scent typical of a teenage boy rushed toward me. He said, "You go up. I'll hold you." He said it lightly, as if it were nothing, but it set off waves in my heart. I parted my lips, unable to speak, only remembering that his profile looked like a painting, sunlight resting on his shoulders like the glass candy I used to eat as a child. After that, Manuel and I grew close. He had many friends, but among them, I was the only girl who stayed by his side. When someone confessed to him, he would always grin and pull me out as a shield, saying that they had to get past me first before he would even consider it. I said, "What does that have to do with me?" He said, "How could it not? You're my best friend." Maybe he had known all along that I liked him. Maybe that repeatedly emphasized best friend was already a roundabout rejection. But I didn't want to face it, so that I could stay by his side. I never made my feelings clear. As long as I didn't say anything, I could pretend he never knew. At our high school graduation banquet, I watched one girl after another go up to confess to him. But this time, he didn't use me as a shield. Panic began to rise in my heart. I decided to confess. I asked him, "Can you walk me home after this? I have something to tell you." He agreed without hesitation. Near the end of the banquet, Manuel's face was a little flushed from drinking. He hooked a long arm around my neck. He rested his head on my shoulder, his breath hot, scorching my skin. Penelope, what did you want to tell me? There were people all around us, infected by his closeness. My body grew hot. My fingers curled as I hesitated, wondering whether to speak. When someone across from us joked, "Hey, you're already graduating, when are you two going public?" My face instantly burned red, and I couldn't help looking at Manuel. He tugged at the corner of his mouth, straightened up from me, and aside from the faint redness from the alcohol, his expression was unusually serious and proper. "Don't joke like that. Penelope is my best friend." Just moments ago I had been burning up. Now my hands and feet were ice cold. It felt as though my soul had been pulled from my body, and I watched this absurd farce from a god's eye view. I saw the color drain from my face, my awkwardness turning into a chill, yet I still had to sit there pretending it didn't matter. My dry, cracked lips trembled as I forced a smile like a clown. "Yeah, don't make jokes like that," I heard myself say. On the way home that night, Manuel asked me again, "Penelope, what did you want to tell me?" I stayed silent for a long time. Then I said, "Manuel, I wish you a brilliant future." Chapter 3. My dad is a sailor. When he goes out to sea, it's common for him to be away from home for a year or even longer. Because of the constant separation, my parents argued about it for quite a while. Later, somehow, things quieted down again. I couldn't be bothered to look into it, nor did I want to get involved. After all, no matter how much they fought, they never withheld anything from me. During the long summer vacation after the college entrance exam, my dad asked if I wanted to go to sea with him. I agreed, and just like that, I spent the entire summer drifting around. When I came back, I was 2 shades darker. When Manuel saw me, he almost didn't recognize me. He stared for a long time before squeezing out a sentence. "You look better when you're fair." I laughed it off on the surface, acting carefree, but inside I was hurt. Being told that by someone you like is always a blow. A crush is a one-person monologue, sweet and sour mixed together. The warmth and bitterness known only to yourself. I thought that more than a month would be enough for me to let go of Manuel. But how could it be that easy? Because of that comment from him, I started obsessing over whitening my skin. In my desperation, I trusted the wrong remedies and ended up with an allergy. I had to go to the hospital for medication. The ointment was smelly and icy cold, and it took half a month of applying it before my skin finally recovered. Just like that, the vacation ended. For our college applications, Manuel and I chose the same city. Our 2 schools weren't too close or too far apart, with a direct bus running between them. When school started and military training began, I wrapped myself up tightly. Not only did I not get darker, I actually became a shade lighter. The first time Manuel came to my campus to see me, I made a point of dressing up. But when he saw me, he didn't comment at all. Instead, he grabbed my arm and pulled me indoors. "It's scorching," he said, disappointed that he hadn't noticed my changes. I dejectedly took him to the cafeteria to eat. On the way, we ran into a guy who had pursued me during military training. Seeing me with Manuel, he seemed to misunderstand something. The look he shot us was full of resentment. Even Manuel noticed. He asked me who that guy was. "Someone who chased me before." Manuel's expression shifted slightly, but he quickly returned to his teasing smile. "Why didn't you agree?" "I didn't like him." He raised an eyebrow and glanced back at the guy again. "Then what kind of person do you like?" "Someone like you." I looked at him, but said nothing. Warning after warning of being just friends had already worn away all my courage to speak. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I wouldn't even get to be his friend anymore. "What about you? What kind of person do you like?" I asked instead. He stretched his arms lazily, his tone indifferent. "No idea. I guess I'll know when it feels right." My gaze dimmed. He didn't linger on the topic and immediately added that the food at my school was way better than at his. I blurted out, "If you ever feel like eating here, come find me. I'll treat you." "What kind of talk is that?" He laughed and ruffled my hair. "Stick with me. When have I ever let you pay?" My heart started racing. The spot he'd touched felt soft and burning hot. Do other people's best friends treat them like this too? I didn't know. I only knew that Manuel was always like this, and I was sinking deeper and deeper, truly unable to resist. Sure enough, Manuel started coming to my school whenever he had nothing to do. Occasionally, I would go to his school to see him, but not very often. Over time, misunderstandings were inevitable. Everyone around me thought he was my boyfriend. Even when I explained, they just assumed I was being shy. After all, the one who constantly gave me gifts was him. The one who treated my roommates to meals was him. The one who took care of me when I twisted my ankle during the 800-meter fitness test was also him. More than once, I wanted to tell Manuel to stop doing this, but every time the words reached my lips, selfish thoughts forced me to swallow them back down. God knows how much I wished that what they said was true. It was the winter of my sophomore year. Manuel asked me to go skiing with him, along with members of a club from his school. My roommates, who knew the situation, encouraged me to take this chance to get a clear answer. Before we left, they helped me with my makeup and picked out my clothes, afraid I'd lose my nerve when it came time to confess. I didn't want to let them down, but in the end, I still lost to reality. That day on the ski slopes, Linda was there too. Manuel was holding her hand, winking exaggeratedly at me. Pretty, right? My girlfriend. Chapter 4. Memories stabbed into my chest like a blade. I didn't know why. Knowing full well this was a pursuit doomed to have no ending, I still let myself fall into it. Manuel, let's break up. The moment the words left my mouth, I felt a strange sense of relief instead. Liking someone is easy. Letting go is what's hard. Manuel's reaction was unexpectedly cold. He didn't want to argue with me in front of our high school classmates, so he silently left with me. In the car, he didn't say a word. I took it as silent agreement. Until a sudden break, he pulled over to the side of the road and asked what I meant. Exactly what it sounds like. You want to break up with me? I think I've made myself very clear. Give me a reason. I'm tired. I didn't look at him because the moment I did, I would think of him hugging Linda earlier, and of how I once humiliated myself trying to please her. We agreed from the start that we were just trying things out. Now that we've tried, my answer is that we're not right for each other. I said, "What's really going on with you?" Manuel didn't believe my excuse. He frowned. Did someone say something to you? I finally looked at him. Beyond confusion and exhaustion, I even saw deep disappointment in his eyes. But I didn't know how much of that disappointment was because of me. Just that morning, I had been moved by the breakfast he made for me, yet I had conveniently forgotten that in the past. He never cooked at all, so how had he suddenly become so skilled, even knowing exactly how long to fry an egg? Maybe I was just benefiting from someone else's place. At that moment, I no longer wanted to preserve even a shred of dignity for him. No one said anything to me. I said. His brow relaxed. He lifted his gaze to look at me because he had such affectionate eyes. Every time he looked at me like this, my heart would waver. For 8 years, it had always been the same. I didn't dare look for long. I lowered my eyes, my chest aching with a dull, trembling pain. Before he could speak, I said again, "I saw it. You and Linda." His expression changed. The calm composure he always wore cracked apart. Instinctively, he reached for my hand. "Penelope." I dodged in time. "Being with me would only get in the way of you two getting back together." "Manuel, let's end it here. Don't drag this out into something ugly. You misunderstood. There's nothing between Linda and me. She's just the liaison sent by the investors. Right now, our relationship is purely work-related." Misunderstood? I took a deep breath. Then was you two hugging also a misunderstanding? I'll ask you just one thing. When you saw Linda again, did you waver? Even for 1 second? Manuel's jaw tightened, his face going rigid. A long moment passed. Then he said, "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, barely able to breathe. Even the last shred of hope shattered. That night, I didn't let Manuel take me all the way home. Some answers don't need to be spoken aloud. Some people aren't worth waiting for. I went home alone. The first thing I saw was the ukulele lying in the living room. That was when the tears finally fell. Just yesterday, we had agreed that he would teach me how to play the ukulele. How had everything changed in less than a day? I had liked him for 8 years, and all I got in return was a single "I'm sorry." Those 3 months we spent together felt as if they had been stolen. I even wondered whether I'd imagined it all. Maybe our reunion on New Year's Eve was fake. Maybe him saying he wanted to pursue me was fake too. Maybe the person who stayed by my side the night he had acute appendicitis on a business trip was fake as well. Maybe he and I should have ended completely 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was passively caught between Manuel and Linda, nearly losing myself. It was also then that I chose to cut off all contact with them. If, during that New Year's Eve encounter at the bar this year, I had still felt a moment of my heart racing, then now, I was completely done. That moment was gone without a trace. Rekindling an old flame was a luxury that was never meant for me. What was even more infuriating was that even while crying so hard I could barely breathe, I still remembered to remove my makeup before sleeping. When I saw the woman in the mirror looking like a ghost, I went momentarily blank, quickly washed my face, and only then regained some strength. After washing up, I took my phone out of my bag. As expected, there were several missed calls, all from Manuel. After thinking for a moment, I sent him a message, "I'm home. Don't contact me again. Let's leave it at that." Then I deleted all of his contact information. After finishing, it felt as though I'd completed something monumental. My heart was calm now. No trace of the breakdown from 10 minutes earlier. I didn't know how long I sat there before turning to pick up the ukulele. After plucking a single note, something suddenly occurred to me. I stood up, walked to the window, and pulled the curtains open. The apartment complex was old, with parking spaces right downstairs. I lived on the 5th floor, with no trees blocking the view. My eyes met those of the man below. He was leaning against the car door, a trench coat draped over him, looking especially thin in the chilly spring night. Before he could make his next move, I snapped the curtains shut. I was afraid that if I kept looking, my heart would soften, but what I wanted was to be someone's one and only. If that wasn't possible, then forget it. Chapter 5. What fills the mind by day returns in dreams by night. That evening, I dreamed again of the winter of my sophomore year. After Manuel got together with Linda, the number of times I saw him dropped noticeably. Liking someone can be humble, but it shouldn't be degrading. After turning down a few of his invitations, it was Linda who took the initiative to find me. She said I was Manuel's best friend, and that she also wanted to be friends with me. I went out alone with her a few times and told her many things about Manuel. For example, that he hated green peppers and eggplant, liked a certain niche clothing brand, enjoyed drinking but was very restrained, and smoked when he was in a bad mood, things like that. And more. Linda said, "You really know him well." I smiled, neither confirming nor denying it. She looked at me for a while, then said softly, "Penelope, you like Manuel, don't you?" I froze. I thought I'd hidden it well. Was I really that full of holes? Then why couldn't Manuel see it? All these years, did he really feel nothing at all? I don't know how long passed. Maybe a few seconds, maybe a few minutes. I replied, "The one he likes is you." That was the last time I ever went out alone with Linda. A few days later, Manuel contacted me. He told me he and Linda had argued. I've forgotten what they fought about. I only remember that from then on, whenever he argued with Linda, he would come to me for advice, asking how he should placate her, because what I said always worked. Yet that period was anything but easy for me. Many times, I wanted to just ignore him completely, but I was spineless. I always softened, analyzed this and that for him, and then, after he left, licked my own wounds, over and over again. I was losing track of who I was even living for, until that one time when he and his roommates got together to drink and watch a soccer match. The place was near my campus. When he called me, I had just walked out of the library. I said I didn't want to go. "Come on, you know everyone there. Didn't we all eat together last time?" "But, Penelope, you've been really strange lately." I took a deep breath. "Where's Linda?" He fell silent for a moment, then said, "Just come over." After hanging up, I didn't go back to the dorm. I went straight to the beer bar. The moment I walked in, I saw him, a long wooden table, with him and several of his roommates sitting around it. I walked over. "You're here." When Manuel saw me, he casually grabbed a bottle of beer and handed it to me. "Penelope, which team are you betting on?" I glanced at the TV screen. "Argentina." He raised his eyebrows smugly. I'm betting on Germany. Want to make a wager? I shook my head and pushed the beer back to the center of the table. I'm not drinking today. I still need to go back later. He frowned. What's wrong? I looked at the others and asked him to step outside with me. Did something happen? You look awful, he asked. I shook my head. I've been getting ready for the graduate entrance exams. From now on, if there's nothing important, don't look for me anymore. The atmosphere froze instantly. He looked at me, and for once, my heart didn't start racing. Instead, my mind went blank. Earlier that day, while I was in the library, Linda had called me. She asked me if I knew where Manuel was. I said I didn't know. Then she cried. She said, I don't know what to do anymore. Penelope, today, his roommate asked me for your contact information. I thought it was strange. Why ask me? When Manuel was right next to him. But he told me it was because Manuel refused to give it. I suddenly remembered that this roommate of Manuel's had once come out drinking with us. During that gathering, Manuel was busy taking care of Linda, while that roommate had chatted and drunk with me, the conversation flowing easily. Linda kept crying. Penelope, why wouldn't he give it? I can't help but overthink it. I had only just brought it up when he got angry. What should I do? I really don't know what to do anymore. Linda's words echoed in my ears. I took a deep breath, forcing myself not to overcomplicate things. I told myself again and again that Manuel wasn't that kind of person. Compared to the possibility that he liked me, I would rather believe he hated me. At least that would be straightforward. And after hours of trying to digest everything on my own, all that was left in my mind was the desire to escape this vicious cycle. I came here just to tell you this. I didn't want to drag it out any longer. Also, I've contacted Linda. She should be here soon. You two should talk it out properly. Once things are clear, it'll be fine. And in the future, try not to argue so much. Communicating more is never a bad thing. Manuel finally sensed that something was wrong. He grabbed my shoulders. What do you mean by that? What you heard is exactly what I mean. I saw a taxi pull over not far away. Linda stepping out of it. Linda's here. You two talk. Manuel turned around to look. I took the opportunity to walk away. He called after me several times. I forced myself not to turn back. After the third time, he didn't call out again, and I knew then that his patience with me only amounted to 3 calls of Penelope. That was all. After that, Manuel and I cut off all contact, until we met again by chance, and he pursued me once more, giving me a dream from my youth. 3 months had passed. It was time for the dream to end. Chapter 6. The after effects of a breakup were far greater than I had imagined. The next day, I showed up at the office with dark circles under my eyes. Everyone was discussing the new general manager headquarters had just sent over, Horace. They said he was extremely handsome, with a model-like figure and a great voice, basically walking testosterone. I glanced at the photos being passed around, made myself a cup of coffee, and commented groggily, "That handsome? Then he's either married or gay." The moment the words left my mouth, the room fell silent. Sensing something was wrong, I spun around. The two-dimensional photo had stepped into reality. The so-called embodiment of testosterone himself was standing right in front of me. Horace looked at me, his eyes pitch black. Like an abyss, there was nowhere to escape. My breathing stalled, as if the air around me had been sucked dry. That farce turned me into the office's joke for the entire day. Poor me, I spent the whole day sitting at my desk on edge, terrified Horace would come after me. In the end, nothing came from Horace's side. Instead, I was the one who failed to finish my work on time and had to stay 2 extra hours. But in an advertising agency, overtime was nothing unusual. I wasn't the last one to leave. When I did, the office area was still brightly lit. Downstairs, I stood by the roadside, staring blankly at the stream of cars. When someone called my name, I was still a bit dazed. When I turned and saw Manuel, my face immediately fell. He didn't look good, dark shadows under his eyes. His voice hoarse. "Why are you working overtime so late again today?" I pushed his hand away. "Enough. We need to talk. There's nothing for us to talk about." I turned and walked off. Manuel refused to give up and quickly caught up with me. But Penelope, suppressing his emotions, he said, "I don't want to break up with you, The wall I had worked so hard to build was on the verge of collapsing until a car horn snapped me back to reality. I followed the sound. It was Horace. He rolled down the window under the flickering lights. The sharp line of his jaw was carved into striking relief. "Penelope, do you need help?" I came back to my senses, taking advantage of the brief moment when Manuel's attention shifted to Horace. I wrenched myself free, yanked open the car door, and got in. I do. Chapter 7. Through the rearview mirror. I watched Manuel's figure fade little by little out of sight. My chest felt tightly blocked, as if stuffed full of cotton. "Ex-boyfriend?" A low voice came from beside me, and only then did I remember Horace was still there. I quickly hummed in acknowledgement and said awkwardly, "Thank you for earlier." Horace glanced at me lightly. His presence was overwhelming. Just that look made my scalp tense. I discreetly wiped the sweat from my palms and added, "You can drop me off at the next intersection. Sorry to trouble you. Am I your chauffeur?" I was speechless. That line instantly reminded me of the daytime fiasco. "That's not what I meant. Address. I'll take you home." His tone left no room for argument. I let out a long breath and finally gave him the address. The rest of the ride was silent. When I saw the entrance to my residential complex, I felt an immense sense of relief. "Thank you," I said. Horace turned his head, glanced at the shabby gate of the complex, and said, "Be careful getting home." I paused, then nodded. After getting out of the car, I intended to wait until he drove off. But he said to me, "You go in first." Once inside the complex, I slipped into the shadows of the trees. Only after making sure Horace couldn't see me did I turn back. The car was still there. It didn't drive away until quite a while later. For some reason, that made me feel inexplicably at ease. In the car, I had expected Horace to ask about Manuel, but he didn't. No gossip, no judgment, no involvement. I was grateful for his attitude. Thank goodness it was him. Because if it had been anyone else from the office, the group chat would have exploded by now. At that moment, the group chat's main topic was still Horace. New boss, new rules, yet Horace was surprisingly approachable. Someone had dug up photos of Horace from a past trip. In the picture, he stood against a backdrop of lush greenery, smiling faintly at the camera, relaxed and unpretentious, handsome in a clean, refined way. Because of that photo, the chat was filled with screaming messages. Someone said, "From now on, I'll finally have motivation to go to work." A flood of +1 followed. I smiled, went with the flow, and added a +1 myself. But soon, within just half a month, the tone of the group chat took a sharp turn. For one simple reason. When Horace got angry, it was terrifying. Chapter 8. Probably because I had gotten into Horace's car that day, Manuel didn't come looking for me again for quite a while. I couldn't quite describe how it felt. Fortunately, the company had just landed a major project. Once work got busy, there was no room left for overthinking. In the blink of an eye, half a month passed. The project was nearing completion when a data discrepancy caused a serious issue. The client blew up. It was only after Horace personally stepped in that things were finally smoothed over. At the emergency meeting, Horace rarely lost his temper. He tore into everyone, inside and out, without sparing a word. Deep down, everyone knew he was right. The problem was that before this, they'd all thought he was easygoing, so the contrast hit especially hard. After the meeting, the office atmosphere was heavy, so quiet you could hear the air conditioning running. I picked up my mug and went to the pantry. While waiting for my coffee, I stared blankly at the imported snacks piled at the corner of the counter. They were put there by Horace. Horace wasn't my direct superior. Aside from the first day blunder and the rides, our interactions were few and far between, mostly in meeting rooms. Occasionally our eyes would meet, but only fleetingly. Honestly, seeing him lose his temper today felt more normal to me. Usually he was polite, but that politeness always carried a sense of distance. With everyone, it was strictly business. Aside from his special assistant, you rarely saw anyone random around him, let alone any gossip. That day's stepping in to help was just good manners. By the next day, it was as if someone had erased it clean with an eraser. We were never walking the same path anyway. My coffee finished brewing. I took a sip just as someone else walked in. It was Amy. Seeing how excited she looked, I asked what was up. Didn't you check the group chat? I shook my head. Didn't have my phone on me. Horace said he's moved into a new place and invited us over for a housewarming. Everyone from the XX project team is invited. I was a little surprised. He just said that? Just now, she casually tore open a small bread roll. I've got to say, President Horace really knows how to win people over. One minute he's chewing out the management team till they're utterly crushed, and the next he's inviting us to his place for dinner. Classic slap first, then give candy. Amy chuckled. But hey, the candy's pretty sweet. Chapter 9. Horace's housewarming was scheduled for the weekend. I was worrying about what kind of gift to buy when Amy asked me to go with her to a wine bar to pick up some red wine. She said Horace liked alcohol. How do you know? I asked. Of course I asked around. You have no idea how popular Horace is at the company. So many people have their eyes on him, anything worth digging up has already been dug up. I laughed. So you have your eyes on him too? She laughed along. Don't wrong me like that. I have a boyfriend, at most. I just want to stay on the boss's good side. I nodded. Then I'll flatter him a little too. The wine bar wasn't far from Horace's place, tucked into an alley behind a high-rise. It was my first time there, faced with an entire wall of foreign liquor. I felt impressed, yet the first person that came to mind was Manuel. Manuel liked drinking too. In his apartment, there was an entire cabinet of collected wines. Back then, to cater to his preferences, I went from never touching alcohol to being able to drink freely. What was even more ridiculous was that Linda couldn't drink at all. After they got together, they had invited me to dinner a few times, but I only went once, and it was one of those gatherings with a lot of people, because I didn't want to be a third wheel. At the table, I clinked glasses with Manuel. Seeing this, Linda advised from the side. You two should drink less. Manuel teased her, lifting his glass to her lips. Want to try? No way. Manuel set his glass down on the table. All right then. I'll listen to you. I won't drink. I watched them flirt back and forth, my expression unchanged as I finished more than half a bottle of beer. Sitting next to me was one of Manuel's roommates. He looked a little surprised and asked, "Drinking that hard, your tolerance must be pretty good?" I looked at him and smiled. Definitely better than yours. Really? We should go out and compete someday. I snorted softly, not quite responding. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed someone watching me. When I looked back, I saw Manuel with his arm around Linda, staring at me with an unreadable expression. His lips were pressed into a straight line, the playful smile from earlier long gone. I quickly looked away and downed the rest of my drink in one go. After that day, I never saw that roommate of his again. Hey, what are you spacing out for? I snapped back to reality and asked Amy, "You done choosing?" I'm torn between two bottles. Same price. Both seem pretty good. That's fine. I need one too anyway. Let's buy them together. Sure. Amy went to negotiate with the shop owner. Left alone again, I noticed there was more space behind the wall of liquor and walked further inside. There weren't many people back here. The displayed bottles looked expensive, and my interest quickly waned. Just as I was about to turn back, I saw two familiar figures. Linda was wearing a figure-hugging skirt, smiling softly as she stood beside Manuel. Their heights matched perfectly. Standing together, they looked like a match made in heaven. "Penelope, where did you go?" It was Amy calling for me. Startled, I hurriedly turned and left before the people across from me could look over. Chapter 10. Horace had just returned to the country. He bought a riverside place, a duplex apartment where every inch of land was worth a fortune. Following behind Amy, I copied her and handed Horace a bottle of wine tied with a bow, saying, "Happy housewarming." Horace accepted it with a faint smile. Thank you. To be honest, this was my first time seeing Horace out of a suit. He was dressed casually, his hair no longer meticulously styled, falling naturally instead, which made him look noticeably younger. When we went to wash our hands, Amy asked me, "Don't you think Horace looks really handsome today?" I thought for a moment. Yeah, he looks young. As I spoke, I wiped my hands and turned around, and then I saw Horace. Me. Horace was tall, looking down at me with lowered eyes. I wanted to ask. He said, "Do you want to order takeout or cook ourselves?" I went blank for 2 seconds. Either is fine with me. He smiled, more genuinely than when we'd first arrived. Then let's cook at home. I'm a hardcore takeout person and can't cook at all. I had assumed Horace would be someone who never touched the kitchen. But unexpectedly, he was very good at it. The curry chicken he made looked, smelled, and tasted amazing. It was the first dish to be completely wiped out. I mixed the curry sauce with rice and, being greedy, ate an extra bowl, thinking no one noticed, only for Amy to exclaim the next second, "Penelope, that's way too many carbs for dinner." Horace was sitting directly across from me. Hearing this, he looked straight at me. My face instantly turned bright red. Only then did Amy realize her voice had been too loud and hurried to save the situation. "But you're young, your metabolism's fast, and you're skinny, eating more is totally fine," Horace added smoothly. "I'm happy when someone enjoys my cooking." Everyone else chimed in, joking along and praising his curry chicken. I secretly let out a sigh of relief. To ease the awkwardness, I lowered my head and played on my phone for a while. Suddenly, a text message popped up from an unfamiliar number. I opened it. "Penelope, did you go to Ching Bar this afternoon?" Ching Bar was the place where I'd bought wine earlier that day. Realizing who the message was from, my palm went cold. I blocked the number without hesitation. Obviously, that didn't actually solve anything. In the past, I had always been forced to watch scenes of Manuel and Linda together. I hadn't expected that after all this time, 2 whole years later, I'd still have to relive it. Once before the breakup, once after the breakup. I didn't know whether to cry over how pathetic I was, or laugh at myself for getting out in time. That hazy, lost feeling from the afternoon surged back again. I lost my appetite, and my interest in the gathering faded too. But I didn't want to kill the mood, and I didn't want to be the first to leave. So when they opened the wine, I still chose to join in. That decision turned out to be a huge mistake. Before drinking, Horace had specifically mentioned that he was a germaphobe. He said the apartment had plenty of rooms and people could stay over if they got drunk, but under no circumstances should anyone throw up, as long as no one puked. Everything was negotiable. And of course, against all odds, that night, I, the one with the highest alcohol tolerance, ended up throwing up. And right after puking, I remembered his advance warning. I got so scared that I cried and hid in the bathroom, too afraid to come out. In the end, Horace spent nearly half an hour coaxing me before he finally got me out of the bathroom. All of that was what Amy told me the next day. After hearing it, I felt like my soul had left my body. I figured I wasn't far from getting fired. Chapter 11. Horace was generous enough not to fire me. When I went to apologize and insisted on paying a cleaning fee, he only said, "If you really feel bad about it, treat me to a meal and we'll call it even." I didn't want to owe him, so of course I agreed. Who knew that on the day we were supposed to eat, I had to work overtime at the last minute, and it ended pretty late. I wanted to reschedule, but Horace said there was no need, so we chose a quiet bar near the office. I ordered a set meal. Horace ordered a drink. "Want to order some food too?" I asked. "No need. I don't have the habit of eating late-night snacks." I stiffened slightly, inexplicably thinking of how I'd eaten 2 bowls of rice that day. "Then I'll treat you properly another day. Tonight doesn't count." He narrowed his eyes slightly, a smile that wasn't quite a smile playing on his lips, but he didn't say whether that was acceptable or not. He had a pair of peach blossom eyes. I don't know if it's true that good-looking people resemble each other, but under the misty blue lighting of the bar, I suddenly thought he looked a bit like Manuel, only colder, and that trace of resemblance vanished in an instant, unable to withstand his gaze. I scratched my head and laughed awkwardly. "It feels like this isn't the first time I've embarrassed myself in front of you. I'm not old. You don't need to use honorifics with me." Was he responding to me saying he looked young last time? Okay, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I still have to say it, about that day. "I'm really sorry. It was a small matter," he said lightly. "Aren't you? Don't you have a germ phobia?" "I do, but you were crying so badly. I'm not that heartless. Some things are truly too painful to revisit." I pressed my forehead. I was drunk that day. Because of it. Amy and the others laughed at me for ages. "How's your alcohol tolerance?" he asked. "Huh, pretty good." I didn't know why he was asking. He chuckled. "Doesn't look like it." "It really is." Wanting to prove myself, I said, Maybe I'm just not good with foreign liquor. Back in college, when I drank Baijiu, no one could outdrink me. Is that so? The price of talking big was that I ended up drinking with Horace. Alcohol loosens the tongue. That night, Horace and I talked in bits and pieces for a long time. Mostly I talked. He listened. He was a very good listener. But I kept my guard up and didn't talk about Manuel, only briefly mentioned my 8-year unrequited love. After a long silence, he said, "You're very devoted." I laughed at myself. So what? He doesn't like me. I can only ever be a supporting character in his story. In the end, Horace called a designated driver, took me back to my complex first, and only then left. When I reached my apartment building, I didn't go upstairs right away. I sat on the steps and looked up at the moon. This little bit of alcohol wasn't even enough to get me drunk. The heavy vomiting a couple of days ago was probably because of my mood. When people are down, they're always fragile. I sat there for a while. After swatting the 8th mosquito to death, I finally resigned myself and stood up. Brooding over spring and lamenting autumn really didn't suit me. I took a few steps toward the building, then suddenly froze. Turning around, I saw Manuel standing not far away. The weather had already started to warm up, but with him standing there, all I felt was desolation. How long had he been standing there? Had he just been watching me like this the whole time? It felt as if I'd been nailed to the spot. Only when he walked closer did I take a step back. Half a beat too late. Seeing this, Manuel's steps faltered, and he stopped. I caught a faint smell of tobacco on him. Manuel only smoked when he was in a bad mood. It's that man again. I frowned. You never replied to me. You didn't go home that night either. He pinched the bridge of his nose, restraining the emotions surging beneath the surface. Are you two together now? Chapter 12. I could have denied it outright, but I didn't. I only said, "That doesn't seem to be any of your business." Manuel frowned deeply. What do you mean it's none of my business? Are you really going to cut me off completely? I looked at him for a long time. I just want to live well. To live for myself. Linda's reappearance had sobered me up. What isn't mine will never be mine. Penelope. I can explain. Manuel rubbed his face. Someone so tall bending down toward me like that. I admit that when I saw Linda at the reunion, I lost control for a moment. But Penelope. I woke up quickly. Linda is already the past. Now I just want to be with you properly. Manuel said that when they broke up a few years ago, it was Linda who brought it up. Because he was too busy with work, they had parted with regret, so he had never quite let it go. That was why he acted impulsively. Why I saw what I saw. Linda really was his client. She was the liaison sent by the investors. He hadn't told me it was Linda because he was afraid I'd overthink it. Last weekend, she contacted me and said she wanted to buy some wine as a gift. You know, I'm familiar with that stuff. So that's why you saw me with her that day. Manuel, don't you understand yet? After hearing everything, I was unexpectedly calm. We've already broken up. Whoever you're with has nothing to do with me. All that so-called regret was nothing but an excuse. A person's first reaction is always the truest reflection of what's in their heart. He hadn't forgotten Linda, and I didn't want to sink along with him. Manuel slowly straightened up, regaining his usual air of looking down from above. Penelope, I don't agree to this breakup. That sentence sent a chill through my entire body. Why should I obey you just because you don't agree? Haven't I humbled myself enough chasing after you in the past? Ask yourself, did you really not see that I liked you? Again and again. You knew perfectly well. My voice started to choke as I counted his faults one by one. If you kept insisting we were just friends, was that your roundabout way of rejecting me? Then why did you still do all those things that made people misunderstand? Why? When someone asked you for my contact information, did you refuse to give it? Why couldn't you see me when I was good to you? But now you suddenly want to be with me? Don't tell me it was only after 2 years of cutting ties that you realized I was the one you liked. Don't kid me, Manuel. I knew him too well. He was decisive in everything he did. When had he ever been this hesitant? Was I special? I didn't believe it. More accurately, I didn't want to believe it. Because once I did, my 8-year unrequited love would become nothing but a joke. The air fell silent for a long while. Manuel lifted his gaze. What if I say it is? I froze, then laughed. So what? My cheeks were soaked, my lips trembled, but my words were unmistakably clear. If that's the case, then I'd only think you're just used to me being good to you and don't want to lose that. Manuel, that's not love. Letting go of someone is indeed hard, but truly moving on often only takes a single moment, because disappointment is always built up bit by bit. Once it finds an outlet, everything collapses at once. If you can't forget Linda, then be with her properly. I don't want to be a substitute, and I don't want to get involved in your mess anymore. Manuel, I'm really tired. Chapter 12. The next day, my eyes were swollen and red, so I had no choice but to wear sunglasses to work. A colleague asked what was wrong. I didn't want to explain, so I brushed it off as a sigh. But in truth, they had probably already noticed that Manuel and I had broken up. After all, he used to come pick me up from work every few days. Now he was nowhere to be seen. It was hard not to read into that. Just before lunch break, Horace suddenly appeared in the planning department. While he was talking with my supervisor, he was standing right across from my workstation. For some reason, I felt a bit guilty and quietly lowered my head. Yet when he left, he still looked over, behind my sunglasses. His half-smiling expression seemed shrouded in a thin gray mist. I had the feeling he knew why I was wearing them, as if something had changed. If before yesterday I had still felt he was distant and untouchable, then now I realized that he seemed able to glimpse my secrets, staring straight at them, with his eyes, in places unseen. He and I had already crossed paths. Once Horace left, our supervisor clapped his hands and announced that there would be a team-building trip to Moon Mountain at the beginning of next month. Amy laughed and asked, "Is Horace going?" Yes. Another wave of excitement followed. There were hot springs on Moon Mountain. I'd never been before and was actually looking forward to it. After work, I was scrolling through swimsuit styles on my phone, head down as I waited for the elevator. The elevator doors opened. Still looking down, I stepped inside. After a moment, I felt like I'd forgotten something. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the floor buttons and finally realized it. At the same time, the person behind me asked, "First floor?" I straightened up immediately and took off my earphones. "Boss." Horace looked at me. He wasn't smiling, yet somehow there was a hint of amusement. "First floor?" he asked again. I nodded quickly. He reached out, then paused, not pressing the button. "I'll give you a ride." Huh? No need. I waved my hands frantically. The light from my phone screen cut across Horace's cheek. His gaze lingered for 2 seconds, then quickly moved away. He slipped his hand into his pocket. "You treated me to dinner yesterday. I'll take you home today. Consider it returning the favor." "But, how so?" He cut off my "but." "But I treated you because I messed up your bathroom." I thought about it, then chose to keep my mouth shut. "It's nothing, thank you." He curled his lips into a smile. "You're welcome. Besides, you still owe me a proper meal." I stared at him in disbelief. He met my gaze calmly. "Your style's better?" Instinctively, I touched my eye. The sunglasses were already in my bag. Haha. Yeah, I laughed awkwardly. He didn't expose me. That's good. I lowered my head. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or something else, but my heart was beating inexplicably fast. Because now, I genuinely didn't know anymore. Between Horace and me, who actually owed whom? Chapter 13. As soon as I entered the complex, I saw a familiar car. Its owner was standing by it, a cigarette between his fingers, talking on the phone. I paused for only a second before quickly heading into the building. I knew Manuel had seen me, but I didn't want to deal with him. Let him come if he wanted. Let him wait if he wanted. It had nothing to do with me. Riding that surge of resolve, I went inside and closed the door behind me, then slowly slid down to the floor with my back against it. After a long while, I pressed a hand to my chest. My heartbeat was steady. It seemed that I really was, little by little, letting him go. For several days in a row, Manuel waited downstairs outside my building. My attitude never changed. I acted as if I didn't see him. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the team-building trip. On the day we left, Horace didn't take the company bus with us. He'd been on business trips lately, and I hadn't seen him for quite some time. But that day he drove me home. before I got out of the car. We exchanged contact information. Yes, even though we'd been in several group chats together all this time, we hadn't even added each other as friends. During the days he was away on business, he contacted me a few times. Not abrupt, not frequent, mostly around dinner time. Just a bit of casual chat before stopping. It never felt awkward. Just yesterday, he even sent me a picture. It was a little donkey figurine, eyes blank, with a sapphire blue pouch slung over its back. He said, "Looks like you." I was both annoyed and amused. I stared at it for ages, unable to figure out what exactly looked like me. Moon Mountain was far away. We set off during the day and arrived in the evening. Everyone was starving. The innkeeper kindly provided ingredients and tools. When Horace arrived, we were already in the courtyard grilling barbecue. "Sorry, I'm late." At the sound of his voice, I looked up through the smoke. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it seemed like he was looking in my direction. I blinked and took a deep breath, only to be immediately choked by the smoke, coughing until my face turned red. A bottle of water with the cap already twisted open was handed to me just in time. Rubbing my eyes, I took it. I was about to say thank you, but it was Horace who had given it to me. Just moments ago, he had been standing right by the table with the bottled water. He teased, "Are you that happy to see me?" His voice was very low, the words slipping past my ear casually. Only I heard what he said, and only I saw the smile in his eyes. Those eyes were looking at no one but me. Chapter 14. The courtyard was lively and noisy. I'd eaten too much and felt uncomfortably full, so I went to the front desk to get some digestive tablets. At some point, Horace followed me and asked if I wanted to go for a walk outside. I thought about it and said yes. The inn was at the foot of Moon Mountain. Further ahead was a long street, brightly lit. There were quite a few people around. At first, Horace and I just walked side by side, not talking much. I asked him, "Why did you arrive so late?" "Flight delay." "I told you, didn't you see it?" I really hadn't. I got a bit carsick and didn't look at my phone. He lowered his gaze and didn't continue the topic. I unconsciously pressed my lips together, wondering if I'd said something wrong. Then he smiled. "You're already this grown up and still get carsick? Are you a little kid?" For a moment, I was dazed. I thought of that skiing trip when Manuel first introduced Linda to me. Those 2 days, my mind had been a mess. Part of me was relieved that I hadn't confessed. Part of me was ashamed of my own wishful thinking. I couldn't ski, and with my mind elsewhere, I fell countless times. On the way back the next day, my waist and back were aching. I sat toward the back of the bus, feeling like I was about to throw up. Manuel and Linda were sitting in the front. When he noticed I wasn't well, Manuel took the initiative to sit next to me and took motion sickness pills out of his bag. He asked if I'd forgotten to take them before getting on. I held the blister pack and didn't say anything, so he rubbed my head again. "You're already this grown up and still get carsick? Are you a little kid?" On impulse, I dodged away. He froze. "What's wrong?" I looked listless and chose my words carefully. "Go sit with Linda. I'm dizzy and don't really feel like talking." He looked at me deeply twice but didn't stay with me. When he left, his expression was dark, as if I'd done something wrong. Lost in my thoughts, I took one step too far forward while crossing the street. A small car happened to pass by. A large hand easily grabbed my arm and pulled me back. "Careful." I startled and almost bumped into Horace's chest as I stepped back. "Sorry." He let go. "What were you thinking about?" "Not even watching the road." I lowered my head. The night breeze wrapped around us, isolating us from the rest of the world. Just when he probably thought I wouldn't answer, I looked up at him. "I was thinking, why you asked me out alone." His eyelids lifted slightly, his eyes bright. "Then did you come up with an answer?" I'd paid too many prices in the past for my cowardice, for not daring to speak up. This time, I didn't want to be passive. I didn't want to stay silent anymore. I said, "Horace, do you like me?" Horace seemed surprised by my bluntness, but his surprise lasted only a second. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he asked, "Do you want to go inside and look around?" There was a candy shop ahead, its display window dazzling with colors. My gaze dimmed. The embarrassment of rejection surged up. I began to regret it. My mind short-circuiting. I could only nod awkwardly and walk into the candy shop without saying anything, trying to hide my discomfort. Maybe Horace felt awkward too. He didn't follow me in. I wandered around the shop, occasionally glancing outside through the glass. Vaguely, I could see him standing under a street lamp, lean and tall, dressed in formal clothes, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, jacket casually draped over his arm, a half-burnt cigarette between his fingers. In the hazy smoke, he looked inexplicably despondent under the streetlight. I took a deep breath. So what if I was rejected? It wasn't that big a deal. I bought a box of chocolates and specifically asked the clerk for gift wrapping, planning to apologize to Horace for my own wishful thinking. When I came out, Horace had already stubbed out his cigarette. He raised an eyebrow. "What did you buy?" I handed it to him. "I was just joking earlier." He paused and rubbed his brow. "Penelope." I didn't take that as a joke. This time, I was the one who froze. "What do you mean?" He looked a little embarrassed. When he lowered his head and smiled, there was a rare boyishness about him. None of his usual depth. "This kind of thing shouldn't have been for you to bring up. That was my mistake." He pressed down the hand I was holding the chocolates with, but instead of letting go, he loosely held my wrist. "Penelope, I do like you. You didn't misunderstand." People were coming and going on the street. I'd already caught more than a few curious glances. My face slowly burned red. "But just now, I was planning to tell you when we got back to the inn, but you suddenly asked me like that." I don't have much experience confessing. I needed a moment to rethink my wording. The sheer amount of information hit me like a wave, leaving me dizzy. "But why do you like me?" Maybe because I've never met anyone who threw up all over my place. And instead of getting angry, I patiently comforted her. He said with a helpless smile that felt like a spring breeze, "Penelope, you're attracting me all the time." I thought no one could resist Horace at this moment. He was damn charming. "Then, what were you going to say to me at first?" He scratched his brow, hesitating. "Are you sure you want to hear it here?" That kind of awkwardness was completely unlike him. I couldn't help smiling. "Yeah, I want to hear it." After a moment, he said, "You're not just a supporting character in someone else's story. You can be the protagonist in mine." My eyes grew hot. I said against my own feelings, "What is that? So cheesy." He held my hand, inch by inch, from my wrist to my palm. "So," he asked softly, "are you willing to be that protagonist?" Chapter 15. Horace and I started dating. After we got back to the inn, he gave me the little donkey he'd bought in advance. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You actually bought it?" He gave the same answer as before. "It looks like you." For the time being, we didn't plan to go public. We just wanted to let things take their natural course. Somehow, Amy still figured it out. On the last day of the team-building trip, she straight up asked me if Horace and I were together. I was shocked. "How did you know?" To avoid drawing attention, we'd deliberately been keeping our distance. Amy looked rather pleased with herself. "Horace's eyes give him away. Okay? That iceberg face of his only melts when he looks at you. Does everyone else know?" I asked. "Nope. But it's only a matter of time," Amy said. "Why? Does Horace not want to make it public?" "It's not that." I hesitated. "It just feels not so great." "What's the problem?" "It's just dating. The company hasn't explicitly forbidden it. Maybe it's because Horace is different." "True. Looks like you'll be gaining a few more love rivals now." I smiled bitterly. "You don't seem surprised at all. Talented guy. Beautiful girl. What's surprising about that? And if you mean your ex-boyfriend, that makes it even less surprising." I was momentarily speechless. "You've been broken up for a while now, right?" "Honestly, everyone more or less guessed it. You just never said anything. So we didn't ask." Amy smoothed my long hair. "A breakup is a breakup. People have to move forward, and Horace is way better than what's his name. You hit the jackpot. Girl, you should be happy. People really do have to move forward." On the way back to the city, I didn't take the company bus. I looked at Horace in the driver's seat. "Do you mind if I ride with you?" That alone was enough of a hint to everyone else about the nature of our relationship. Why would I mind? He'd never once said he didn't want to go public. I pursed my lips. "The pressure's a bit much." He smiled and squeezed my hand in reassurance. When we passed the toll booth, he asked if I'd taken motion sickness pills. I forgot, I said, finding it strange myself, but I don't seem to get carsick anymore. He put on a mysterious air. So it turns out I also have anti-motion sickness powers. My face flushed. Stop flattering yourself. Horace drove me home. I didn't get out of the car right away. We chatted for a bit before I left. The little donkey was only palm-sized. Walking into the complex, I took it out of my bag and looked at it again and again. My mood impossibly good. That good mood lasted only a few seconds, though, before settling back to normal when I saw Manuel. To be honest, seeing him now didn't stir my emotions the way it used to. Back from your trip? He asked. I hadn't told him about the team-building trip, but it was easy enough to find out. So it wasn't strange. I nodded, as if sensing something. He suddenly looked at the little donkey in my hand. His pupils tightened slightly. A souvenir? Speechless, I put the little donkey away. Manuel, don't wait for me anymore in the future. He frowned, clearly wanting to speak but stopping himself, as if there were so many questions he wanted to ask, yet when the words reached his lips, all that remained was silence. Chapter 16. At first, I thought being with Horace would be difficult. After all, we grew up in different environments, with different tastes and preferences. I was afraid that even finding common topics would be hard, and I didn't know how long that moment of attraction could last. It turned out I was overthinking it. As a boyfriend, Horace was impeccable, so good it was almost unfair. He could cook, create surprises, and give me comfort right when I was feeling sensitive. I never had to worry about us running out of things to talk about. He seemed to know everything, and when I needed help, he could even guide me with the calm assurance of someone who'd been there before. In front of him, I held nothing back. I was like a child. Sometimes I even wondered if heaven had taken pity on me, if that was why. After nearly 10 years of lowering myself, I'd been allowed to meet someone as good as him. I had to admit that after just 1 month together, I was already becoming more and more dependent on him. That day, after dinner at his place, I checked the time and was about to remind him that it was time for me to leave. Lately, this had been our routine. Work, getting off work, eating together at his place, then him driving me home. On weekends, we'd ride bikes together in the park, swim in the rooftop pool at his place, and experiment with all kinds of strange new recipes. But this time, instead of grabbing his coat and heading for the entryway like usual, he pulled me down to sit with him on the couch. Want to watch a movie? Caught off guard, I plopped straight onto his lap, freezing and not daring to move. But it's already late. Stay and watch a movie with me, Penelope. He'd had a bit to drink at dinner. His brows were faintly red now, his tone almost coquettish, the scent of alcohol mixed with mint, as if it were trying to intoxicate me too. I'd always been soft-hearted. I gave in. All right. But the movie only played through the first half before we both lost focus. On screen, the male and female leads were still in that ambiguous, tentative phase of campus romance. After a long silence, Horace suddenly said, "You and Manuel met in high school too." I tilted my head up. Why bring that up all of a sudden? I've never seen what you looked like as a student. Plain, I said, gesturing at my forehead. Super thick bangs. Sounds pretty cute, he said with a smile. I pinched his cheek. Are you drunk? No. He wrapped an arm around me and circled back to the topic. You haven't really told me how you two got together. Only then did I understand his odd behavior tonight. Earlier that day, we'd gone to the aquarium and run into one of Manuel's former college roommates. I wasn't very familiar with him. We exchanged a brief greeting and left it at that. But Horace had been off ever since that encounter, quiet, subdued, more silent than usual. Thinking back, maybe it was the way that roommate looked at him, and that opening line, "Why isn't Manuel here with you?" that had hit Horace where it hurt. Amused, I began telling him about the past at an unhurried pace. Actually, when I was almost a senior, I cut off contact with Manuel and his circle. Back then, I used preparing for grad school as an excuse to turn down all of Manuel's attempts to reach out. Over time, he got annoyed too. He stopped chasing after cold responses, and we completely lost contact. Preparing for grad school was just an excuse. After graduation, I didn't stay near campus. I came straight back to my hometown, and that was when I found my job. So he found you again later? Horace asked. I shook my head. We ran into each other by chance on New Year's Eve this year. After more than 2 years apart, we met again in that bar. The awkwardness was inevitable. That day, he asked for my contact information. I thought it was just polite small talk, so I gave it to him. I didn't expect him to become overly attentive. Within days, he was already driving to my office building, asking me out to dinner. I couldn't read his intentions, and I just let myself be pushed along in a daze. Until one day, in his car, he asked if I wanted to try dating him. That was when I finally woke up. I've never been someone who indulges in fantasies. For 8 years, I hadn't been able to make him feel anything for me. How could one reunion suddenly change everything? He was acting strangely. That kind of pursuit, like trying to make up for something he'd missed, wasn't what I needed. And I didn't want to be his temporary distraction either. So I rejected him. But he was more persistent than I'd expected, and I was softer than I'd thought. During that business trip, I had acute appendicitis. He happened to call me, and without another word, he booked the earliest flight and came to stay with me. Horace's face darkened instantly. So just because he stayed with you, you agreed to try dating him? His sudden anger startled me. I nodded cautiously. Horace was unexpectedly furious. From beginning to end, his attitude was never clear. You were just confused, one little bit of sweetness and you were moved. Why does he deserve that? I couldn't help laughing. Why are you so mad? He'd claimed he wasn't drunk, but right now, there wasn't a trace of his usual maturity. He was downright childish. I'm angry on your behalf. I cupped his face and nodded perfunctorily. But what he said next nearly brought tears to my eyes. I wasn't part of your past, and I don't know what kind of family environment you grew up in, but it's obvious why you find it so hard to ask for things, even when all you have to do is ask. And you'd get it. You're afraid of losing it, so you don't say anything. You don't ask. You'd rather hurt yourself than ruin the rare harmony. I'd never told him about my fragile family situation. His insight was so precise it left me choking, unable to speak. Penelope, he said softly. You're always afraid to want things. I really feel for you. Chapter 17. That night, I didn't leave. Horace pushed his luck and suggested that I move in with him. Of course, I refused. In the end, we compromised. I would pack a few sets of clothes and keep them at his place, so I could occasionally stay over. In truth, we both knew it was just an excuse, but we shared a tacit understanding. The next evening, I went home to pack my things. Horace had a dinner engagement and couldn't come with me. I told him to pick me up after he was done, and he agreed. What I didn't expect was to see Manuel at the entrance of my building. Ever since Horace and I got together, Manuel hadn't shown up for a long time. I thought he'd finally given up, but there he was again, standing in front of me. I realized then, maybe he had never really left. He just stopped appearing in front of me. He looked more dejected than I had ever seen him. A faint stubble had grown along his jaw. When the elevator doors opened, he looked straight at me. The crease of his double eyelids was unusually deep, exhaustion weighing on him so heavily that he barely looked like himself. You didn't come home last night, he said. I stepped out of the elevator, suddenly worried about his state. Have you been waiting here the whole time? He ignored my question. Penelope, I've thought about a lot these past few days. I stayed silent. The past was my fault. I didn't cherish what I had. His voice was very low. Can we really not go back? I was suddenly tired of this endless back and forth. It seems you still don't understand what the problem between us actually is. My response was cool as I decided to lay everything out clearly. People change. When I agreed to try again with you earlier this year, it wasn't just because you flew over to take care of me. To be blunt, I wanted to give my 8 years an answer, but I realized that the Manuel I loved was really just the Manuel who jumped down from a wall to catch me. It was like an obsession. I liked him without hesitation, without asking for anything in return, even when he treated me well on one hand and pushed me away in the name of friendship on the other. I still liked him. Manuel's gaze darkened. He seemed to sense where this was going. I continued. After losing contact with you, I found that I couldn't forget you. I even thought I'd lost the ability to love. Truly, Manuel, if I hadn't been with you, I would have firmly believed that this one-sided feeling would never change. Penelope. Stop. He tried to interrupt. I ignored him, but after we got together, something always felt wrong. I couldn't stand your touch. Every time you got close, it reminded me of the way you smiled at Linda in the past. That's when I realized it was a thorn. I couldn't let go of the fact that I'd been so miserable back then, yet still pretended everything was fine, trying to please both sides. Manuel, I really did try. I was so close to truly accepting you, but what about you? I saw with my own eyes how you lowered yourself to Linda, trying to please her. Can you imagine how that felt for me? To be honest, besides the pain, what I felt even more strongly in that moment was relief. It was a sense of this was how it was always meant to be, fermenting wildly, becoming the final straw that crushed me. The lights in the hallway went out. My voice grew softer and softer. Just like you thought I would always stay by your side, I also thought I would always like you. Please don't say it, Penelope. He looked at me, almost begging. That last flicker of light in the darkness was about to go out. I finally said it. Manuel, don't you understand yet? I don't like you anymore. Chapter 18. The next time I saw Linda was a month later. Horace was planning to take me to the seaside for a vacation, and I was browsing travel guides online when Linda's call came in out of nowhere. My finger slipped, and I answered. She asked me out for afternoon tea. The weather was gradually turning cold. I accepted the invitation. When I stepped into the agreed-upon cafe and caught the scent of coffee in the air, my whole body relaxed a little. Linda was already there. She looked almost the same as she had back then, if anything, even more beautiful. I sat down. She smiled gently. I've been back for so long, and only now am I asking you out for tea. I'm really sorry about that. I smiled along faintly. She raised her hand to call over a waiter and ordered a set meal for me. I noticed that it was the exact combination I used to like the most. Did Manuel ask you to come and persuade me? I asked. She raised an eyebrow. You know him pretty well. I didn't respond. But you don't know me, she said, blinking at me. I don't want the two of you to get back together. I asked you out today just to clear things up from back then, start to finish, so we can part on good terms. I was puzzled. What's there left that wasn't clear back then? What happened after you cut off contact with Manuel? The corners of my mouth fell. Manuel had said that the reason he and Linda broke up was because she brought it up, because he was too busy with work and neglected her. But from Linda's mouth, the truth shifted ever so slightly. She said the problems between her and Manuel were entirely because of me. Can you stop pushing your problems onto me? I said. Linda shook her head bitterly. Back then, Manuel thought you were just in a bad mood, that sooner or later you'd come back to make up with him. He never expected that you were serious about cutting him off. You probably don't know how bad his emotional state was during that time. He was on edge all the time. Maybe work wasn't going well. I said. Work was just an excuse. I knew very well why he was busy. He changed. He got busier and busier. And I grew more and more disheartened along with it. I was silent for a moment, then said coldly, and you say you're not here to speak on his behalf. But if I don't say it, and you don't make your stance clear, you'll turn into a permanent scarlet mark in his heart. And that's not what I want. What stance do you want me to make clear? I've already said everything that needs to be said. Linda continued on her own. After you left, Manuel realized his feelings for you. He just refused to admit his own failure. I was unlucky. I happened to become the sacrifice in that battle. Penelope. When he came back to find you and pursue you, besides liking you, it was even more because of past regrets. But he knows how stubborn you are, and he knows exactly what kind of him you like. That's why, even after meeting you again, he didn't want you to know how uncertain and wavering he once was. That attitude, rather than helping me let go, felt more like fanning the flames. Linda knew exactly what I hated. Every word she spoke was like sprinkling salt onto my wounds. She was tearing apart the last filter I had left for Manuel. I took a deep breath and finally understood what kind of stance she wanted from me. Linda, I have no obligation to pay for his self-inflicted sentimentality, I said, deciding to give her what she wanted. During those years, the one who suffered because he didn't understand his own feelings was me. Neither of you has the right to erase that memory for me. I didn't touch the dessert on the table. Instead, I waved to have it packed up. Before paying, I said, "Please help me pass on a message to Manuel. Tell him to look forward, not back, and to stop looking for me. If he can do that, I'd be very grateful." What I didn't know was that after I left, Linda turned to someone seated at the table behind us and said, "You heard it all, right?" Her voice was unusually buoyant, as if she were taking revenge for the man's past neglect. She said, "I told you long ago, she couldn't accept the real you, Manuel. You had it coming." Manuel said nothing. He stared out the window, dazed. At that moment, I was stepping out of the cafe to meet Horace, who had come to pick me up. I asked him, "Why did you get out of the car?" "Didn't want you to get bullied." He glanced toward the cafe. I don't know what he saw, but without any warning, he suddenly leaned in and kissed me in public. I jumped. "What are you doing?" Just as I was about to turn my head to look, he steadied the back of my head and brushed my ear with his fingers. "What kind of coffee is that sweet?" he asked. I scoffed. "What's wrong with you? I didn't even drink coffee." He smiled and wrapped an arm around me as he guided me into the car. That scene pierced Manuel's heart, though he didn't see the look of wistful loss on Linda's face behind him. He only said hoarsely, "You're right. I had it coming." Chapter Horace. Horace had never met anyone more outrageous than Penelope. She threw up all over his place, and still expected him to coax her. Fine. Coaxing her was one thing, but she even wanted to curse at him while he did it. On his conscience, he really hadn't done anything wrong. Before this, his strongest impression of her was nothing more than that one line, "That handsome?" Then he's either married or gay. He had never been interested in his subordinates' private lives. At most, he knew she had an ex-boyfriend who was trying to win her back. Yet after she finished crying, she clung to his arm and called him a bastard. Amy stood off to the side, mortified. Should I go downstairs and make some hangover soup?" With the hand he still had free, he pinched the bridge of his nose. "Please do, quickly." Amy left as if she'd been granted a pardon, and the guest room was left with just the two of them. Thanks to Penelope, the dinner gathering had ended early. Those who needed to leave had left. Those staying over were settled, and he, who should have gone back to his room to shower, was instead trapped beside a drunk woman, unable to leave yet unable to stay. The drunk's strength was absurdly strong, and she kept mumbling, "Bastard, played with my feelings." He laughed helplessly. "How did I play with your feelings?" She stared at him blankly. A moment later, her eyes reddened. "You only know how to cherish things after you lose them. You're a dumbass." Great. He'd been upgraded from bastard to dumbass. He said calmly, "You're going to regret this tomorrow." "Regret what?" "You've got the wrong person." Penelope tilted her head, squinting left and right at him for a long while. "Manuel, you got better looking. Your ex-boyfriend's name is Manuel? Why are you pretending to be dumb?" He laughed. Suddenly, he found her kind of amusing. She embarrassed herself in front of him every single time. He wondered whether she'd remember any of tonight when she woke up tomorrow. Thinking that, he picked up his phone, wanting to leave some proof. But when the camera pointed at her, her eyes were unexpectedly clear, as if she'd sobered up. "What are you doing?" He looked at her on the phone screen, his breathing slow, and went quiet for a few seconds. "Taking pictures of you." She broke into a sudden smile. "Then you have to make me look pretty." "Okay." At her request, he took a few photos. He didn't bother much with angles, yet all of them turned out quite nice. It was just that the next day, she forgot everything and never asked him for the photos. And those few pictures stayed in his phone, out of selfishness. He never deleted them. Chapter Manuel. Manuel didn't know how to describe his relationship with Penelope. Calling them friends didn't quite fit. Calling them a couple was even further off. Penelope knew all of his likes and dislikes and was willing to tolerate all of his bad temper. He once asked her why she treated him so well. At the time, she was still holding a love letter someone else had given him. She thought for a long while before saying, "You're the one who said I'm your best friend. If I'm not good to you, who should I be good to?" He pondered that sentence, then nodded. "That's true." But strangely enough, he didn't like it when other guys set their sights on his best friend. He remembered one weekend when everyone went to a karaoke bar together. Penelope was approached by a guy she didn't know. He had stepped outside to smoke and happened to see it. Almost instinctively, he walked over and wrapped an arm around Penelope's shoulders. Penelope. Who's this? He forgot to check Penelope's reaction. All he remembered was the awkward apology from the guy before he hurried away. In that moment, Manuel tasted the sweetness of victory, until Penelope pulled his hand down. Don't get handsy. He paused for a beat, then doubled down, hooking an arm around her neck and dragging her back toward the private room. I'll do it anyway, he said. Maybe the intimacy went too far. That day, everyone's looks toward them felt off, tinged with teasing and ambiguity. Not just them. Even he himself felt something was wrong. When someone started singing our song, almost as if seeking revenge, he insisted on holding Penelope close, pressing his face to her ear as he sang along. Lovers break up and get back together, but we only love each other more and more. As soon as he finished that line, he snapped out of it and let go of her, awkwardly asking, "How was my singing?" Penelope seemed frozen. She lowered her head and said, "Not great." But he still saw it. Her face had turned red. After that day, physical contact between him and Penelope became more and more frequent. Yet somehow, it was always just short of crossing the line. He liked Penelope, but not in the way lovers like each other. He liked her more than a friend, but not enough to be a couple. Being with her, he didn't have to worry about anything, didn't have to pretend. He even felt that if such a perfectly balanced relationship were disrupted by romance, it would be a terrible shame. Friends could last forever. Lovers, however, rarely withstood the erosion of time. If Penelope hadn't truly disappeared from his life later on, perhaps he would have continued as before, unchanged, enjoying her uniquely generous devotion under the name of friendship. Penelope's departure had a significant impact on him. Linda argued with him over it several times. "Manuel, do you like Penelope?" He couldn't bring himself to shake his head. Just like the song said, lovers part and reunite. He and Linda broke up and got back together over and over again, until they finally reached the end. Linda said, "There's no point in dragging this out anymore." "So," he asked, "is your junior waiting for you downstairs right now?" Linda froze. "I saw your messages." Then what was I supposed to do? Linda covered her face and cried. "How many days has it been since you spent time with me? Are you really that busy? Or are you hiding behind work to avoid things? Have you ever thought about that?" He said nothing, lighting one cigarette after another. Before leaving, Linda said, "He just keeps me company and talks to me. Believe it or not, nothing happened between us. Did that even matter?" He stood on the balcony, watching Linda walk toward that junior. She never looked back, but he thought, if it were Penelope, she would never have treated him like this. Linda's departure only made him miss Penelope more. Their reunion at the bar, calling it a coincidence would be generous. It was closer to something long premeditated. He had believed that as long as he gave Penelope what she wanted, they could finally be together properly and never separate again. But he was wrong. Penelope was far more resolute than he had imagined. She lived too clearly, wanted things too explicitly. When he saw the smile on her face as she stepped out of that man's car, it felt like a lifetime had passed. How long had it been since he'd last seen her smile like that? It seemed that after he got together with Linda, she had never smiled at him like that again. That smile had once belonged only to him. Now, he had lost it. The bitterness of regret spread through his entire body. He knew it clearly. He and Penelope could never go back. More than friends. Not quite lovers. That was him and Penelope.